I'm working on a small Sansui flat panel TV. Looks like it's about a 22-inch or so, or probably only a 19-inch actually. It's in kind of rough shape, and it does power up. I've actually got it partway taken apart already here. But I've noticed that the longer it's on, the left speaker has static in it, and the backlight flickers, more and more as it warms up, and eventually the backlight just goes out, and you can still hear the sound and everything, and you can still see the picture if you shine a light on the screen, but there's no more backlight. And if you turn it off and wait a while, turn it back on, it's back to the same thing. It'll work for a minute and then shut down again. And looking at the inside, from what I can see, that I didn't see any cheap capacitors that were bulging or anything. From what I can see, with only part of the back cover off. So I'm starting to wonder if there might be a broken backlight tube inside the LCD itself, which I hope isn't the case, because I really hate having to change those when they get broken. And most of the times you got to take the whole screen assembly apart, and it's just a nightmare. But I'm going to take the back off this thing, and maybe we'll find out what's going on. Maybe it's a simple problem, maybe it's not. On the back there's a couple of panels that you can take off. One's got the controls in it, and the other one's just an access panel that you can remove to unplug the backlights. And also have to take the wires. The wires are kind of intertwined with the back cover, so you got to unlatch all that stuff before you can get the cover off anyway. This one, in fact, I'm not really sure how I'm going to get it out, because it's almost like they put the connector on after they ran the wires through, even though I know that's not the case. But nonetheless, that's a tight fit, and it doesn't unplug at the other end. It's got a Samsung panel in it. Doesn't look like there's a whole lot in there other than that. It's just a cheap Chinese, actually no, it's not made in China, it's made in Thailand, but it's just a cheap flat panel TV. So let me see if I can get the back cover the rest of the way off, and we'll go from there. Here's what it looks like with the front bezel and screen removed. Front bezel just snaps on once you've got those 4 corner screws out and a couple that hold the stand. It just pops right off. Disconnect the 2 backlight leads and the LVDS cable to the screen. Got the power and inverter board here and the controller board here. So next step is to take a look at the other side of these boards and see if there's anything obvious going on. The boards look better than I expected, really. I also expected that there wasn't going to be any bad caps, and there was not. At least not on the power supply board. These are all Nichicon caps. The only thing I found that was out of tolerance was this cap right here. It's a 330 microfarad, 6.3 volt, and it looks like it's the filter for the B+ that drives the screen. That's a little bit out of tolerance, but I don't think it's going to be causing the problem that I'm having. I'm really starting to have my suspicions that there's a broken backlight lamp in that panel. So it's probably not going to be worth fixing if that's the case. Unless I can find a screen real cheap, but I doubt that. The screen usually costs as much as the whole TV is worth. But I'll take a look further and see what I find. Well, as you can see, I ended up taking the screen apart, which is a very frustrating job in itself. Unfortunately, I didn't think to film it, because I'm resuming this project several months later, and at that point I wasn't really sure I was going to even bother fixing this thing. But I determined that one of the backlight lamps was indeed broken, and the way I figured out which one it was is I had a panel from another monitor that was laying around that happened to have the same style connectors on the backlights, and I unplugged one or the other backlights from the original screen and plugged in one from the other panel, and then let the TV run. And when I got to I was testing the lamp in the top of the original screen, and it would start acting up, and the picture was very dim and flickering and just making the TV act goofy. So I determined it was the one on the top of the screen that was messed up. And of course when I took the screen apart, the lamp just crumbled, and they always seem to break at the very end, right where they turn black as they get older. I think they just get really hot at those points and make the glass weak or something. But I ended up buying a new pair of lamps from a seller on eBay called CCFL Warehouse, also called Plasmo Industries. I've used a couple of their lamps in the past for monitors at work, and they're very good quality lamps. So I've just got to get the wiring transferred over to the new lamps, and hopefully that's going to get this thing back up and running. The only mistake I made is I lost the silicone shock absorber rings that go around each of the lamps. There's 3 of them on each one, so I'm going to have to borrow one off the other lamp and just have one on one lamp and 2 on the other. But it's going to be better than nothing, I suppose. I don't know if it'll show up on camera, but the original lamp here on the bottom, the phosphor is also a little bit darker color than the new lamp, which tells me that there's definitely a lot of hours on this lamp. I was considering just replacing the one broken one and leaving the other one alone, but like I said, it's so much work to get these things apart, and to do this I might as well just do them both at the same time instead of having to take it apart again in the future. Well, hopefully the worst of handling the lamps is over with now that they're mounted back in the frame. It's always kind of a pain to get the wires attached, you know, twisted around the lamp because they're so tiny and these lamps are so fragile. And you know, you have to form the wires around the end of the lamp, trim off the excess, get it soldered, and get the end cap back on without breaking anything. And then when you go to do the second one, it's the same deal. You know, you got to get the wire twisted around the lamp, get it soldered on, and then also have to make sure that the wire is coming off in the proper direction before you solder it, because if you have to twist this end cap around 180 degrees or something to match up this other one after you've soldered it, you're just going to end up breaking the wire off or even breaking the lamp. So it gets to be kind of a pain to get that all back on there, but I hope it's going to be okay now. All I got to do now is find a way to reattach the return line back onto the frame, since I don't have any of that small double-sided tape that was originally used, but I'll figure something out. Well, I got it back together, but seeing how much difficulty I had in getting this back plate back on and keeping all the parts lined up inside the screen assembly, I'm not really going to keep my hopes up too high that this is going to work properly, because either something's not going to be lined up or there's going to be a big piece of dirt inside the screen assembly, like what tends to happen when I take these apart. But at this point, I can only hook it up and try it, I guess. Alright, well, let's see if this thing was a waste of time or not. I don't think the power button worked when I pressed it first time. There it goes. Hey.
Become friends with someone before you date them, but I think the way you do it is, you know, you meet someone, become their friend,
Sweet.
build a foundation.
This thing has a narrow viewing angle on it, though, I'll say that much. Picture just disappears, you move just a little bit off axis.
Yeah. Oh, but once you find it, oh, it's so worth the wait.
Yeah. I understand. Man, I wish I saw Phoebe first.
So far so good. I'm going to put the front cover on this thing so I can give it a proper test. Well, after getting the screen all cleaned up and getting it put back together, it looks pretty darn good. It just took a second for the backlights to warm up because it was just so cold down here. But, man, what a difference. The screen had all kinds of scuff marks and dirt and stuff all over it, and it looks almost flawless now. You know, this is playing a over-the-air digital signal, HD, and call me crazy, but I think the signal coming over the air actually looks better than the cable TV that you got to pay for. And I've always thought that they should have made cable TV go fully digital and high definition and left the over-the-air as analog, you know, because most people that have cable have to have a box anyway, so I don't know why they did it the way they did. Something about needing the over-the-air bandwidth for other stuff, but I always thought it was dumb how you pay for cable TV and most of the channels look like crap, and then you got a free over-the-air signal and it looks nice and clear. Go figure. But this thing is all set up and working good, and I'm going to call it done.